There are many theories to explain the great unknown. Some people turn to science, others religion. And of course, there are those that just shove both aside and say that life as we know it just happened, though this theory turns back to science in the end. See Darwinism. Many different countries and races have had religion for as long as there have been a recorded history. And in more recent times of intercontinental travel, there have been reports of black holes, places where boats and planes just disappeared off the face of the earth, the most famous being the Bermuda Triangle. No one knows why these places exist, or even how they exist, but there is one theory, spoken in little more than whispers due to its controversial subject matter. It is referred to, by some, as the God theory. It is said that during the reign of King Henry VIII, 3 high-standing bishops, this was before the creation of the Church of England, were called into a private meeting. No one knows what was said during this meeting, with only the 4 men in the room. However, after the meeting concluded, the bishops were quickly taken aboard a mysterious ship and never seen again. According to one of the bishops' diaries, found in the late 1890s during a restoration of one of Henry's manors, the king had been acting peculiarly in the months leading up to when they were called in to counsel the king. He had been rambling en masse, talking about how God was man-made and how we would make a far better God than any that the Romans and Hebrews had made. The bishop, who was also practiced in medicine, took it as insanity setting in order that Henry be bled to allow the demons causing his insanity to escape. After bleeding the king several times in the month, the king's ramblings stopped and the bishop declared Henry sane. It was only a month later that the 3 bishops disappeared. There are many differing stories as to what had happened to these bishops. One was that Henry sent them to a harsh and savage land as a form of exile from the British Isles and as punishment for speaking out against the head of state. Another is that the bishops were simply going back to Rome and assumed similar roles in the Vatican. Then, of course, there is the God theory. The God theory states that the ship the bishops boarded was a prisoner ship, a floating prison where convicts were forced to languish on the open sea as punishment for whatever crimes, imagined or real, the passengers may or may not have committed. On this ship, there were 6 convicts, 3 men and 3 women. Among the crew itself, there were a handful of sailors, 2 guards, the captain, and the bishops. The first stop was in fact Rome. While the ship waited in dock, the 3 bishops were taken to the Vatican City, where they were ushered into a meeting with Pope Leo X. This meeting was documented. Although the scroll that it was documented on is close to destroyed, what can be read from the scroll, however, could change the way people look at religion forever. What remains of the scroll says, "This translates to, let these 3 men travel to 3 desolate islands and attempt to disprove our Lord God. All evidence of this test is to be documented and saved so that future generations will not fail to know the power of the Almighty." This is when the 3 bishops go back onto the ship and are never seen again. Everything here is purely based on speculation, although with such conditions, it would not surprise me if they were in fact true. It is believed that the bishops were dropped off to 3 differing islands, each one male, with 1 female prisoner. These islands were tropical in atmosphere and devoid of human life. It is hypothesized that each bishop on his own island then hypnotized their prisoners, effectively erasing their memories of any previous life. The bishop would then name the male Adam and the female Eve. The rest, as they say, is history. Some hypothesize that when Adam and Eve were hypnotized, the hypnosis caused them to only be able to hear the bishop. Time would go on as usual, and left with no means to leave the island, a civilization was born. Now, due to the hypnosis, it is theorized that when each pair of Adam and Eve's had their children, the children could, at first, see the bishop as well as hear him. But after constant insistence by their parents and the constant ignorance from the bishops, any children born would no longer see him, just hear him if he chose to speak as God. Time passed and obviously the bishops would die. They of course were only human. Whether the new race of humans were able to see his body when he died, no one knows, but it is theorized that as time went, the prisoners, or Adams and Eves, became things of myth, or even worshipped as the forebearers of the human race. It is said stories were written, and of course songs too. Some would also have supposedly conversed with their god, and thus a religion was born. Of course, no one has heard from these people, and if they have met them, they have not returned from their encounters. And this is where the theory of the triangles comes in. Think of the stories you hear of alien encounters. They tend to fly strange airships, or, in some instances, come from the water itself, correct? What if, for example, when these people left to fend for themselves on these islands, they didn't, for example, evolve. In some way they were still human, but had certain characteristics changing in them, which would transform them into a new form of the human race. And if they were to see a civilized human, imagine what they would think. Time traveler, perhaps alien, or demonic being, most likely. Now, maybe when these people saw the race set up by Henry VIII, they chose to join them, and why not? They were most likely a peaceful, relaxed race. Or maybe when the natives saw the civilized people and equipment, they attacked, seeing this civilized race as a threat. Some people can travel through these triangles unharmed, coming clean through them. Others disappear forever. And of course, there are the reports of islands being seen in the distant, usually uncharted. Yet, they never do get charted, now do they? Keeping this in mind, including the brief mention of alien encounters, is it possible that the world's religions were created by a superior alien race? Keep in mind, in the Bible, it is said God made us in his image. Well, why not? Don't give it too much thought on my account, though. After all, it's only a theory.